Hey guys, welcome back to There Goes Infinity. I literally had a muffin for breakfast. College is going great. Thanks for asking. Okay guys, so as you can probably tell by my voice a little bit now, I am sick. I just happened to get sick and I've been really trying so hard not to, but sometimes it's just not in your control. Things happen. So anyway, one of the biggest questions that I have been asked by people going through the college process right now is how to pick a dorm. How do you pick like where you're gonna live on campus? And this is a really hard question. Sometimes it's a matter of just knowing what's available and being able to make a logical decision from that. But for example, here at UT, there are literally, I'm sure there are over 300 different places like that you could potentially live as a student. And there's places like Riverside, which is like further away, and there's West Campus, which is like where a lot of the big high-rise apartment-y type of places are. So there are just so many options to pick from, but just to cut to the video, I want to talk to you guys about some of the options that are available. So the first thing that I recommend choosing between is a dorm or an apartment. This is really hard to do, honestly. I think that once you you have to take into account all of the other factors that we're going to talk about in this video as for what you're looking for. But the best way to choose between dorm and apartment is by reading online, read reviews of different places that you're potentially looking at, and try to do like a compare analysis of the two of them. And a lot of the time, different incoming classes will have Facebook pages, and this is a really good way to talk to other students, figure out where they're living. For example, if you don't have a roommate in mind, which is totally cool by the way, like I didn't pick a roommate, they just randomly selected for me and it was like the best thing ever. But yeah, these community forum pages are a really great way to go talk to people, get to know what options are there, and help you make a better informed decision about the dorm versus apartment situation. The next one that you're going to want to look at is the individual versus the shared bedroom. Individual bedrooms for your first year are pretty hard to get, I will say. The reason that they are hard to get usually, or at least at UT for example, is that you have to be in the earliest wave of applicants for a certain residential area to be able to get one of these, and they're very selective. They're definitely try to decide this ahead of time. I'm not saying that it's impossible to get an individual room, especially at a bigger school during your first year, but definitely be open to the idea of sharing or having a shared bedroom. That's actually the layout that I have right now, and I had a lot of like insecurities and worries about it, but it turned out great, honestly. It feels like, especially because we have like this half wall divider, it really helps to kind of like distinguish your space and give you some alone time when you need it. I know that's so crucial for introverts, so I totally get it. The next thing to consider is the location on campus. So you're going to want to think about things like if you need to park your car, for example, and I'll get to that later in the video, how far you are from your classes, whether you're in a secure location, somewhere that you enjoy. For example, there's a big difference between being in West Campus here at UT, which is like the area that I'm in. It can be very partyish sometimes. It can get very noisy. You don't have as much room, but you do have the great location and proximity to campus. So, and also I think that, you know, there's so many people that it's really easy to build a community here. While meanwhile, there are places like the further out apartments and stuff where it's very quiet. It's very like home style, and in a sense, you're gonna have a lot more room, but you're also trading off that it takes a long time to get there. If you don't have a car, you have to use a bus, and there's just a lot of things to consider in the actual like location part of it. So my campus situation is kind of weird because UT is literally in the middle of a medium-sized US city, which makes for parking and traffic and everything to be kind of a pain in the butt. So they're gonna charge you for it, and it's not cheap. I will say it's very expensive. But seriously, try to look at like where your classes are gonna be the most. Try to like predict, okay, I'm a first year, so I'm kind of gonna be all over the place. Like, I'm taking a bunch of different kind of classes. But for example, think about it in your later years. If you are, like, let's say an engineering student, it makes way more sense to pick dorms or apartments that are closer to the engineering complex, because inevitably that's where you're gonna be most of the time. And I like my location because I'm close to the business school and I can go there very easily, like no hassles. So that's just definitely something that you're gonna want to consider. And then the next thing is like one of the biggest factors for a lot of people, and that is price. Read into prices, read reviews from people, go to the location, make sure that it's a place that you enjoy. This will make or break like your dorm making decision, I feel like. Because it's really pricey to be in an apartment. For the most part, at least, that is. Unless you're living further away, it's gonna be probably cheaper. But colleges know what they're doing. They have done this many times before, and you definitely want to take a look at the pros and cons cost-wise of living in a certain space. And for example, with dorms, you're not gonna have additional charges, but you have to think about that meal plan, you know, how you're gonna utilize it. There's just so many things to take into consideration. And there are dorms like Kinsolving here at UT, which have an amazing food court, like huge, lots of selection and options and good food actually. And then there are also places like Jester, which are just like loaded with people. And so, you know, they're gonna have different price ranges too in their own senses, just based on that factor. Now, bathroom is another thing that you'll want to consider. I know that's people are kind of 50-50 on, I feel like, having the community style versus a private bath. I have a shared bath, so that means I'm only sharing it with one other person, so it's like essentially a private. Dorms that have a community bath are typically gonna be on the less expensive side, which is definitely something good to consider. So it sounds silly, but definitely think about that when you're choosing your dorms and read into it in advance. This one might not be relevant to a bunch of y'all, but if you're leaning more towards the apartment or the dorm apartment hybrid idea, definitely think about where in the building you would like to be. So for example, I did not get to choose where I wanted to be in the building this year. I could put in requests though, and you know what? I didn't get any of my requests, so that's fine. I did get one of them. I want it to be by the window, and that's just me. For example, if you want to be closer to the laundry room, you should put in a request for that. If you want to have a nice view of the pool, or you want to have a nice view of blah blah blah, like put a request in for that. I know that like people on the other side of the building probably have amazing views of the UT Tower, and I do not. It's okay. Also, sometimes you'll be put like in a corner room where things are arranged kind of differently. So just once you actually move into your dorm, try to be patient with your roommates, try to figure everything out. I promise you it'll work better for all of y'all in the long run. And the last thing is also one of the biggest factors, I think, and that is the community. I personally, I'm glad that I went the more social atmosphere route for my first year. Being in a social dorm like Callaway is really great because it gives me exposure to different people. I can, you know, go over, I mean, I wish it were a little more social, if anything. I know some people are really close with their hallmates in traditional dorm layouts, and for example, if your school requires you to live in a dorm your first year, I mean, of course, everyone's gonna be there, so you're gonna build a sense of community anyway, but those first few weeks living in the dorm are so essential. I feel like that's the time when you meet the most people. Neighbors are actually like stopping by each other's places and being like, hi, my name is blah blah blah. So definitely take that into consideration when looking at a dorm. Sometimes apartments, I will say, I mean, you kind of think like, oh, apartment, like frat party, noisy, blah blah blah, but that again totally depends. I will say, like, yeah, it gets noisy here at Callaway, but it's not like destructive noisy where I feel like I'm gonna lose my mind. But thank God I have good neighbors and stuff around me, so I got kind of lucky with that. But if you are, for example, more introverted or so, definitely try to do some research. There are quieter dorms. There might be like an honors quad you can live in. There are a lot of older and smaller dorms that also have a sense of community, but you can know that if you need to get to bed early, if you need to stay up late studying, if you need to, even if you have people over for a movie night, you know, you're not going to be listening to your neighbors. There are just a lot of factors to consider in making this decision, and I know it can be so overwhelming. I personally applied to, I think, 3 different places for housing. No, I take that back. I'm sorry. I applied to 4 different places for housing. I'm just so happy with the decision that I made, and I feel like it's a really good balance. Plus, it got me sort of ready for the transition into living in an apartment where I have like my own kitchen and so on and so forth. So there's just a lot to take into this decision, and please, if you have any questions or you want suggestions, you can like type in, I don't know, in the comments section, just type what you're looking for in a dorm, especially here at UT, and I will try to help you in the best way that I can to help you find it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure that you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to There Goes Infinity, and I will see y'all in my next video when I am hopefully healthy again. Bye, lovelies!